Joining us now, Wired senior writer Jake LaHutte, staff writer for The Atlantic and author of its newsletter Galaxy Brain, Charlie Wartzel, and former communications director for the RNC and Republican strategist Doug Heye. Gentlemen, Jake, I'm going to begin with you. This Epstein stuff is not going away. The administration is trying to put it away. Donald Trump is demanding AG Bondi release the grand jury testimony, but that is up to a court, and it could be heavily redacted even if it is released. And yet there are still demands to get more.
Yeah, and in my most recent reporting for Wired this week, I had a Trump advisor straight up say there is nothing we can do to satisfy the base. And this is internally, there's a lot of cope going on, as you mentioned earlier. Some of it is that only super online people care about it. I would heavily doubt that if you've met a regular person who has said, I'm not normally a conspiracy theory-minded person, but this Jeffrey Epstein stuff and, yada, yada. And then the other explanation is that the fatal flaw from the view within the White House and Trump's inner circle was simply giving all those binders to the conservative influencers. And in their view, that's kind of where this started to get out of control, and they could have just sort of tamp this down, they think. But again, he campaigned hard on this, and I find that excuse a little bit of a stretch.
Was Pam Bondi in over her head on this?
That's their view, certainly. I mean, I've also noticed that Dan Bongino has not tweeted in over a week.
Which is unusual for him.
Yes, he is quite online.
I don't envy that you live in the world where you know how long it's been since Dan Bongino has tweeted.
Well, yeah, I also looked up his personal account and remembered that Dan Bongino blocked me some time ago. Don't know why, but...
Okay. Charlie, you write today that this is a conspiracy, the Epstein stuff, that nobody can control. Donald Trump can't control it. Republicans can't control it. It's interesting that Democrats are getting on board with this, because why would Democrats want to be put in the position of potentially regaining power and then having the same demands put on them?
Well, that's what's really interesting about this. It's a really dangerous game. Like, I described the entire Epstein saga as this really unstable compound. It feels like any group or any person or any shock or influencer who tries to do something and some power, using it to their advantage, it ends up blowing up in their face. It's a very dangerous game that I think these people are playing. And frankly, I wouldn't advise people to do that, to make promises you can't make, because this situation feels just extremely hard to control.
I set up the top, Doug, that this is the story that's vibrating so hard it's knocking all the other screws loose. There are other things that the MAGA base has been upset about: the Iran stuff, the No More Forever wars, Ukraine's getting refunded, there's involvement in Israel. In fact, Theo Vaughn was complaining about that as well in that TMZ clip. We didn't show that portion. There is a feeling among some MAGA voters, maybe not the diehards that always loved Donald Trump, but the ones that came and helped him get back into office this time, that maybe he is just one of the same politicians that they had so little faith in, that they say one thing on the campaign trail and do another when they get into office.
Yeah, look, it's a sliver of the MAGA base, but it's a real one. And all of this is mired in conspiracy theories, not just on Jeffrey Epstein. The part that you read from the American Conservative said the unnamed people controlling the levers of government. That's a conspiracy theory. And Donald Trump, I would argue, has given, and just recently, given a lot of big victories to the MAGA base. The defunding of NPR and PBS has been a huge conservative priority for decades. And Donald Trump is the one who can say, I've delivered on this. The problem is that we're not talking about that. He's not able to talk about that because everybody in America right now is talking about Jeffrey Epstein, and he doesn't have good answers there, and it only keeps this thing going on. And if he were to release more documents, the challenge that Trump would face is that if anything is redacted, let's say like a victim's name, well, why is that information being hidden from us, the conspiracy theorists would say. So there's sort of a no-win situation for Trump here, and it's a good reason why Democrats are trying to exploit that.
Is Donald Trump not going to be able to slice himself off from this controversy, this conspiracy? He has done a remarkable job, Doug, of somehow being able to avoid criticism or avoid speculation among MAGA voters for his own relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. He's the one that's pictured with him over and over again. He's the one who spoke glowingly about him publicly in a New York Magazine article about him. He's the one who the Wall Street Journal has just uncovered wrote Epstein a bawdy happy birthday note that said, may you always have these wonderful secrets. I'm paraphrasing. Donald Trump has denied this. But he's the one that, at the very least, has the closer association to Jeffrey Epstein publicly than anybody else that's out there publicly in politics right now.
Yeah, look, that's a very real problem for him. And I think we've all been in situations where we've been asked to do something for somebody's birthday, send a video. That would happen a lot during COVID. You're only doing that for people that you know well. And so that becomes a problem for Donald Trump here. And if he denies it and says that it's a hoax, as we saw with when we had the whole Slack controversy, there's real evidence that can come out later. So you can deny this now. What do you then say if the letter actually comes out and we all see it? And this could happen in a million different directions on this case, whether it's real or whether it's imagined by conspiracy theorists. And all of that will be talked about. Yeah,
we see if it is Donald Trump's signature on that letter, which is contained in the outline of a woman's body. And the signature is placed very intentionally, according to what the Wall Street Journal has seen. NBC News has not seen it. Steve Bannon, Charlie, is saying that MAGA and Donald Trump are finally on offense. This is what he texted CNN this morning. President Trump has had enough and is fighting back against his real enemies. Good start, but stay on offense. It's when Trump is at his best. Attack, attack, attack. Trump is attacking the Wall Street Journal right now. He's trying to rally his supporters around this idea that he is being assailed by the fake news once again. That has been an effective strategy for Donald Trump over the years. If the news reports on it, if journalists report on something, he turns it right around and has been able to inoculate himself by saying they're all a bunch of scammers and liars.
I think we're pushing up against the edges of his ability to direct attention and control these news cycles. I mean, the thing about this story is that it doesn't go away, but also this story is a huge part of the myth of Donald Trump, the thing that he has sold his supporters since even before, QAnon or all of this sort of online, like pedophile ring drama and conspiracy. He has been someone who has said, we're going to champion your ideas. We are going to stand up, against the causes that against the injustices of the world. And this idea of this child sex trafficking, of this Epstein, theory, and the idea of transparency with the files, this is core to the promise he's made, to the myth of himself and his administration that he has sold people. And so there's almost no way to go on the offensive there, because this whole thing is him being defensive. He's having to sort of, backtrack or deflect against this thing that he has sold himself as being, which is this crusader against, this particular injustice.
What are you hearing today, Jake?
So a lot of the reaction that I've been seeing is trying to pin a lot of this on that Wall Street Journal story, making this now a Trump versus the media thing. But on Steve Bannon's show, there was a fellow by the name of Mike Benz, who you might remember from a Brandy Zadrozny report, unmasking his alt-right online persona. And he said, Trump made this a MAGA thing, and you can't un-MAGA it. And I thought that actually might be one of the best summaries I've heard so far of what the kind of core of the problem is here, which is that when you talk to the Trump advisors, especially privately, and I would say this even extends to the conservative news space, you ask them, okay, what's up with the focus on trans women in sports so much, the Epstein stuff? And, they'll say, look, like there's a gulf here between how much, especially in the Trump White House from the campaign, how much the staffing class cares about this kind of stuff versus the voters. And this is just such a top issue for them that I don't think you can let time, sweep it away.
The difference between the staffing class and the voters is the staffing class not that interested in Epstein, even though they were the ones whipping it all up for years and years. Cash Patel going on podcasts, exactly. Dan Bongino going on podcasts.
And someone like a Bongino could be a true believer, and that's worth looking back at, like, was a key mistake here stacking the top levels of federal law enforcement.
Which is why maybe he's been silent for the past week.
Truthers, yeah. But no, I mean, it really is a dynamic that I think has they've avoided running into this kind of a problem with a variety of other issues going back to the campaign. But so much of the decision making and how they choose to message things in the White House is based around the base.
Are they nervous about it?
Absolutely. And that's what I was reporting this week, that they will admit, at least on background and honestly, that this is very much a big deal. There's not a clear-cut solution to this. And the question is whether a resignation or a firing will do anything.
It's interesting because, as I understand it, this is a White House that is full of people who don't want to talk to the press as much as they did the last administration, when it was just everybody everybody was in a firing circle is what I'm looking for. They were trying to take each other down. It's been much more locked down this time around. So to hear anything from them on any topic means they are pretty nervous. Am I wrong to make that
No,
jump?
I think that's a fair assessment. And I totally agree with your point that there were these rivaling factions in Trump 1.0. And now that we're in what I would call the third iteration of Trump world, everyone's a true believer. Everyone's pretty locked down. But you know, you can inject the truth serum and get them to acknowledge reality on something that's kind of as much of a dumpster fire as this.
Jake LaHutte, really good to have you. Thank you so much. Charlie Wartzel, good to have you as well.